The ancient town of Ravensmoor had always been steeped in mystery, its darkened alleys whispering tales of curses and forbidden knowledge. Within its eerie confines lived Eleanor, a strikingly beautiful young woman with cascading jet-black hair, whose beauty was both mesmerizing and unsettling. But despite her stunning appearance, Eleanor bore a cruel twist of fate. She was bound to a wheelchair, her legs rendered useless after a childhood accident. She had long since grown weary of watching others live the life she had always longed for. Her only solace was her younger sister, Isabel. Isabel was a beacon of joy, a kind and radiant soul who adored Eleanor beyond measure. While Eleanor's world was steeped in darkness and envy, Isabel's was filled with laughter and light. Their mother, Margaret, tried to keep the family together, but even she could sense the growing bitterness festering within Eleanor. As the years passed, Eleanor's resentment toward Isabel deepened. It was no longer just about her sister's ability to walk, it was about her entire existence. Isabel had everything Eleanor had ever wanted, the freedom to move, the admiration of others, and now, the love of a man named Nathaniel. He was a scholar, a man of intelligence and charm, and he had fallen hopelessly in love with Isabel. Their marriage was soon to be announced. Eleanor, however, would not let it happen. She had spent years studying forbidden texts, hidden away in the dusty chambers of their decaying ancestral home. Among the relics of the past, she had discovered something dark and powerful. A book bound in ancient leather, its pages whispering secrets of the arcane. A spell that could offer her exactly what she wanted, a way to swap her crippled body for another. One night, as the town slumbered beneath a moonless sky, Eleanor set her plan into motion. She had been carefully collecting pieces of Isabel, strands of hair, drops of blood from a small wound she had inflicted under the guise of an accident. Tonight, it would all come together. Sitting in her dimly lit chamber, she placed Isabel's hair and blood upon a ceremonial cloth. She whispered the incantations, her voice merging with the howling wind outside. A candle flickered violently, casting eerie shadows upon the cracked walls. She slit her finger, letting her own blood mix with her sister's, completing the unholy ritual. As the final words of the incantation left her lips, an unbearable pain surged through Eleanor's body. She convulsed violently, the room spinning in a vortex of dark energy. At the same time, Isabel, asleep in her chamber, gasped for breath as an invisible force pulled at her very essence. The walls trembled, a deafening silence followed, and then, nothing. Morning came, and Eleanor opened her eyes. But something was different. She sat up, effortlessly swinging her legs over the side of the bed. A cruel smile played upon her lips as she realized, it had worked. She was in Isabel's body, her once useless legs now strong and steady. She glanced at the mirror and saw Isabel's reflection staring back, yet behind those familiar eyes, it was Eleanor's dark soul that resided. But where was Isabel? She turned toward the corner of the room, where a shadowy figure writhed on the floor. There, in Eleanor's old, crippled body, was Isabel, her wide, terrified eyes locking onto Eleanor's new form. She tried to scream, but no words came out. She was trapped, imprisoned in the broken shell Eleanor had left behind. The house was soon filled with mourning. Margaret and Nathaniel wept over Eleanor's seemingly lifeless body, believing her to have perished in her sleep. They held a quiet funeral, unaware that the soul of their beloved Isabel was now screaming within the corpse they burned to ashes. Eleanor, now Isabel, stood by the river, clutching the urn that held the remains of her former body. She smirked, whispering mockingly, "Goodbye, dear sister." Instead of scattering the ashes into the water, she hid them away in the attic of the house. A soul untethered could never rest, and she wanted Isabel's torment to be eternal. Nathaniel, oblivious to the horror, married Isabel in the following months. But something was different. His once loving bride had changed. Her touch felt cold, her gaze unsettling. She carried an air of darkness that made even the warmest room feel like the depths of a crypt. He often awoke in the dead of night, watching her stand by the window, whispering in a tongue he did not understand. One night, as a storm raged outside, Nathaniel woke up gasping for air. He turned to find his wife, her face twisted into something monstrous, her once beautiful smile stretching into an unnatural grimace. Her voice was not her own, but a cacophony of whispers and screams. "What are you?" he stammered. Eleanor, Isabel, merely chuckled, placing a cold hand upon his chest. "I am everything you've ever feared." A chilling wind howled through the house, the doors slamming shut one by one. Somewhere in the attic, the urn trembled violently, as if the ashes within still fought to break free. But Eleanor had won. Or had she? Because every night, in the silence, a whisper clawed at her mind, growing louder and louder. A voice that refused to be silenced. A voice that belonged to the soul she had stolen. "You can have my body, but you will never be free of me." And for the first time in her life, Eleanor felt fear.